This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 370 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's mammoth task to overcome arguably the best team in the world right now in the Champions League quarterfinal. To discuss this tie, I'm later joined by Matthias Suuck, my partner in crime, but now here I have a guest. You can hear him on the Bluemoon Podcast, David Mooney. Hello and welcome to the show. How are you doing? And this is weird because we're on Zoom right now and we can actually see each other. So I have an audience watching me do the intro. That's completely uncalled, and I'm very nervous. But yeah, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Don't be nervous because I look like this. So, I mean, the listeners can't see, but my hair is like 9 miles long at the moment and I just look ridiculous. So don't be nervous at all.
No, you look just fine. I wouldn't even know how you look when you bring your A game, because I assume that's just it.
This is about my D or E game at the minute. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sitting in my basement wearing a hoodie. But luckily no one can see that either. So, let's have a quick transition now to the upcoming game. Obviously, Manchester City are unbeaten in the Champions League. They have one draw, and the last game in the round of 16 was against Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think that happened in Budapest, if I'm not mistaken. And that was two very easy cruising to win games for the, what do you call them, Sky Blues, I guess.
We don't really do that. It's just City. We don't. Yeah, we don't. We are the
citizens.
Blues are kind of Chelsea. Yeah, citizens is not. City fans don't say citizens. That's a very club and corporate thing. We kind of a push. We would say Blues, but it's just City, really.
Yeah, I haven't really written about Manchester City yet, so I don't have any.
It's hard. There's not many when you come to write about them, and obviously for editorial reasons, you're not allowed to say the same thing again and again. You have to check. You have to have the alternate words. City don't have that many. You wouldn't say citizens. It's good in the years where they've won the title because champions is a very nice substitute, but it's always Manchester City. And then at a push Blues or Sky Blues, but it's not. Yeah, it's not an easy feat.
So, anywho, David, how are the soon-to-be champions Manchester City doing right now? Because from all I've seen and read, they are doing very well. But how well exactly are they doing?
Yeah, it's a weird kind of season, and I think it's. I think it's Guardiola's answer to the problems that they had at the start of the season and for most of last season, that they're playing the way they are now. You go into games and there's kind of two feelings. That you look at the results and the performance that has kind of led to that result, and everybody after the game will go, well, that was a good result and a good performance and everything was nice and calm and controlled. But during the game, you can get quite nervy and quite panicky that they're not playing very well, that they're seeing a lot of the ball and not creating too many chances. And then they'll score 2 or 3 in the second half and everything will look perfectly fine. And so you have this kind of disconnect between how you're feeling during the game, which is like a bag of, like, even though City have been on this winning run of 20 odd games, or one defeat in 20 odd games, you have this bag of nerves feeling where during the game you're going, they're just not playing well at all. I don't see where the goal is coming from. And then they'll put a passage of play together where they generate a tap in at the back post and you go, oh, that's what they're doing. They're just playing the long game. They're being really patient about it. And this patient City is not something that we've seen for a while. A lot of last season, they were doing this sort of stuff, but they were missing chance after chance. I mean, you just look at the Champions League exit against Lyon at the end of last season. they had so much more of the ball than Lyon. Lyon had 3 chances and scored them all, and City missed an open goal and hit the post a couple of times. And it just like those sorts of things were. It was almost like Guardiola couldn't control that, and he's come back this season and gone, right, we really need to control that. And so there was a spell in the weekend's game where the possession stats came up on the screen, and it said Leicester City 0%, Manchester City 100% for the last 5 minutes, and that's just where City are at the moment. They get the ball, they don't let you have it, and Guardiola's quite happy with the way games are going because the opposition are not getting that many chances in City's box, and those they do. You know, you've got Diaz and Stones with a little bit of Laporte in the last few months doing really well to snuff everything out, and behind that, Edison's been playing well again this season. So they've looked so much more solid than they have in recent years. So the last kind of couple of months of this winning run has been built on just controlling games, not battering teams into submission like they used to, not being really fast and fluid on the counter-attack. It's just been, we've got the ball, you're not getting it off us, and we'll create some chances and eventually score them.
Yeah, control is basically the main word whenever I think about Pep Guardiola football, even when he was at Bayern Munich and really crushing Dortmund or draining basically the life out of any Bundesliga team, because in the Bundesliga, at some point, we had debates whether teams against Bayern Munich are even trying anymore. And it just because nobody really had any chance at all to do something about their very high pressing and then the amazing ball retention. And you're basically saying is that they're slowing down their attack a little bit and keeping the ball a little longer to maybe create that bigger or higher percentage chance. Instead of firing a little bit more often, or how would you describe their adjustment, let's say, to problems they have?
Yeah, I'd go with that. I think people think of the classic City Guardiola side as that one that had Sane on the left, Aguero through the middle, and Sterling on the right. And what you'd see so often with that team is they would draw the opposition out. They then suddenly find that there's a pass on in behind, and they put it in behind for one of those 3 to run onto. And suddenly they're on this counter attack where everything is it feels so fast and fluid. And it almost feels this season like Guardiola's looking at those options and going, don't play that risky percentage pass, because what happens is we lose the ball, there's a transition, and the other team get a chance to kind of get in behind us. So make the safer pass, because at some point we will draw somebody out of position that will allow somebody to get in behind and get that higher percentage chance, as you say. And so I've not kind of thought through the way that goals have been scored this season, but it feels like that kind of work it to the byline and create a tap-in goal that City were doing in 17-18 isn't really the sort of goal they go for at the moment. It tends to be that kind of consistent pressure on the defence, keep the ball inside the opposition third for good 2-3 minutes at a time, and just work those openings to the point where eventually somebody will be free in the box where you can get the ball to the feet and they can get a shot away. And that's how Mendy opened the scoring against Leicester. It's there was the brilliant De Bruyne through pass for Jesus and Sterling for the second goal against Leicester, but still that was one of the few kind of counter-attacking chances that City had. Normally at the minute they just keep the ball and they kind of press, they kind of kill the opposition with possession. Yeah,
that's what Dortmund tried to do at the beginning of the season as well, especially under Lucien Favre. That was sort of the plan, basically, to have a very serene approach and try to keep the ball for as long as possible. And I think the main word we've heard at every press conference was patience. And obviously for Dortmund that didn't work out so well, just because their ball retention just wasn't good enough. They don't have the players to necessarily do that. Now, obviously, the most similar team to Manchester City in the Bundesliga is Bayern Munich, and Dortmund recently played them. It was a 4-2 loss in the end. Dortmund had 2 very early goals, thanks to Erling Haaland on the counter-attack, and Dortmund came out all guns blazing. But right after they scored the second one, they sort of collapsed and were sort of almost content just defending their own area. And it worked out, I would say quite well for a game against Bayern Munich, but in the end they were just completely picked apart and killed. And my prediction is that something similar will happen against Manchester City, minus probably the part where Erling Haaland scores a brace at the beginning. But I've basically I try to figure out what the best way is to hurt Manchester City from a Borussia Dortmund perspective, but I'm really struggling to find a way, because even the last ditch defending, when there's a transition moment from Manchester City, has improved tremendously recently. So if I can't find something on my a layperson's view of Manchester City, maybe you can provide me a more in-depth look of either why Dortmund are entirely doomed, or where exactly Manchester City are vulnerable.
Well, this is the interesting thing, because I'm really nervous about this game with Dortmund. As I don't know if Dortmund fans would expect that. I don't know.
The infamous Manchester City Champions League history might play a part in
well,
in your
yeah, I mean,
conditioning of
there
the
is
nervousness.
that. There is that. I think the other side of it is, when we look at somebody like Haaland from England, what we see is somebody who punishes teams when they make a mistake, and that's it. And while City haven't made many mistakes, like it almost feels like Haaland can get on the ball anywhere in the final third, and suddenly it's in your net for no real reason other than he's really good. So that's a constant worry, and the fact that away goals come into play. I mean, City's exits in the Champions League under Guardiola have they've been, each one's been different and not normal. Like the first one against Monaco was ridiculous. The 5-3 at the Etihad is genuinely to this day the best game of football that I've ever seen, and like it had everything, that game. There was superb finishes, there was defensive errors, there was a blatant penalty not given. There was, just ridiculous goals left, right, and centre. It was end to end all game. And if that's the type of game that Dortmund bring, then City might be in trouble, because the away goals rule has bitten them in this sense before. Then you look at the next season, they went out to Liverpool, where Guardiola tried something daft. He put Ilkay Gundogan on the on the right flank to try and cover the Liverpool counter-attack, but also give City an extra body in midfield. And what it did was just allow Salah and Mane to run in behind consistently time and time again. And so before you know it, half an hour's gone and the 3-0 down. And so that was game over, done and dusted. And then the next season, he tried, they were in that mammoth title run-in with Liverpool for the 18-19 title. And he looked at the schedule, and there was like 16 games left. And that first leg against Tottenham was the one where he went, that's the only one that we can afford to lose, because we have the second leg to be able to rescue it. So what we'll do is we'll go there, we'll kill the game, be really, really boring and do nothing. And if we win, great. If we draw, okay. If we lose, it's not a disaster, as long as it's not a big defeat. And they lost it 1-0 and missed a penalty, so they didn't have the chance to have the away goal. And so that meant for the second leg, he had to kind of go, well, let's have some chaos, and opened up the floodgates. And suddenly, before they knew it, they were 2-1 down after 20 minutes, and Tottenham had 2 away goals, and City had a mountain to climb. Didn't happen again that night. And then Lyon last season was just emblematic of the problems of last season. Have a lot of the ball, don't do much with it, and concede the opposition's only chance. So each one has had a different problem to it. So I'm kind of wondering what the problem is going to be this year, because they've looked really good in the Champions League. So I don't know. It could be absolutely anything that goes wrong in this one, and that's possibly where my fear comes from. And as for how you kind of get to City and how you make them, how you beat them, I don't really know at the moment, because the only example that we've got of City being beaten in 2021 is Manchester United at the Etihad, and I can't for the life of me believe that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a tactical mastermind that has come up with a formula for beating Guardiola's City, but yet the evidence is that he keeps doing it. So I kind of feel that the best way to get at City at the minute is to score first and score early, and just knock that early rhythm, because when they're not in that rhythm, it becomes a bit of a problem. if you kind of sit back and try and defend the space and let City have the ball, it might work for an hour. But we've seen City have been very patient this season, and if they go in at 0-0 at half time, they're not particularly worried because they trust the players to go out in the second half and carry on what they're doing and get the win. So I don't know. I think the best way is to take an early lead, but be very solid defensively. And I don't really know how that fits with Dortmund this season.
Yeah, not very well, I'm afraid. So it's kind of a bit sad because obviously you would hope for Dortmund to be on a higher level, just due to the team they have. It's a shame that Jadon Sancho is out injured and Youssoufa Moukoko, who obviously is still very young, but could be of help. He was recently announced to be out for the season as well. So that's a shame that one of the best Dortmund players that they have, and one of the one they basically most need to create chances and to get Erling Haaland really going, is out missing. Maybe he'll make the second leg, but I honestly do not know. But yeah, you just basically just gave a very elaborate way of saying my team is in control of everything apart from luck and randomness that the football game, and it's still a very low scoring game, so it always provides that. But yeah, you would basically have a freak accident in order to lose this. Meanwhile, Dortmund basically need to be at 100% and do everything right for once, which also would be a freak accident in a way.
There is a third option there, though, and that is that Guardiola spent the last kind of 3-4 weeks looking at this tie and has seen something in the way that Dortmund play that he really doesn't like, and he tries to do something that to combat it, and suddenly you end up with City playing a back four that becomes a back three in certain situations, and then this player moves there or this happens, and it just doesn't work, and City look a bit disjointed because that has happened in the Champions League in the past as well.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I've already pre-recorded the second segment with my co-host Matthias, and I already said my prediction that even if Pep Guardiola overthinks this one, he's still gonna come out on top. So yeah, I don't really count this third option either. So let's talk a little bit obviously about Ilkay Gündoğan, Gelsenkirchen born, yet a big legend in Dortmund because of his major contributions to Borussia Dortmund during their second title-winning season under Klopp, and obviously with the cup. And he was the sole scorer for the Black and Yellows in the Champions League final. So that's some experience he obviously has more of than Manchester City as a club, I guess. When was the last time Manchester City won a European title? I think I read it was like 51 years ago. So it's been a while.
They won the Cup Winners' Cup in 71, I think it was.
Yeah.
But it's quite a while ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Before I was born, anyway.
Yeah, but Ilkay Gündoğan, I think, is one of the key pieces in that Manchester City team. And right now, I think in this calendar year, is that correct? He has scored the most goals for Manchester. So how is he doing, and why is he so darn good?
It's really odd because like he's been talking recently about his form, and the question that keeps getting put to him is, you're in the best form that you've been in at City, so what's the driving force behind it? And his answer has always been, I don't think I am. I actually think my best form was in 2018 and 2019 when I was asked to play this role what that Fernandinho was playing. And it's kind of a light switch moment where Gündoğan in City's team hasn't had a kind of a set role and a set job for his entire time at the club. He's been moved around a lot, and whatever job he's been asked to do, other than that Liverpool Champions League game where he was asked to play right wing and come inside, he's done really, really well. And I think part of the problem with that is then, as fans, we look at it and go, he's a bit of a utility man, a jack of all trades, doesn't really, doesn't shine in any particular position. And so while he's good to have around, he's not one of the best players in the team. And then this season, he started the season alongside Rodri as a holding midfielder, and he was doing a lot of the kind of running box to box that Rodri wasn't able to do. And City were looking a little bit dull and uninspired because Rodri hadn't quite kind of got the role of the double pivot on his own with alongside Gündoğan working out. As soon as Rodri's moved on his own in that holding role and Gundogan's pushed a bit further forward alongside De Bruyne, Gundogan's finding the net every other week, and he's finding those through balls, and he knows when to release it. There's something that the word that I learned earlier from my athletic colleague Sam Lee earlier in the season was pauser, which Gundogan seems to understand and know, and that's when he's got the ball at his feet, he knows when to hold it for a split second longer to know when the pass needs to be delivered so that it plays somebody in good time. So he knows. Like I sound like the what's that New Order song? You got to hold and give and play at the right time. It sounds like that, but that's exactly what he's doing. He knows when to release the ball, and his delivery of pass more often than not is pretty damn good. He's spot on most of the time, and so with that combined with knowing when to drift into the box and when to kind of hang on the edge of the area, be that other option, he's proving to be a really, really influential player for City this season, and he's popping up with goals, he's popping up with assists, and that is what people take notice of. And it's only kind of looking in retrospect to his previous seasons that you think actually he was pretty good in those seasons as well. It's just that the job he was being asked to do is a different one to the one he's doing now.
So is he going to be a starter against Dortmund on Tuesday? And if he is, in which position are we going to find him? And where is that going to be in relation to Kevin De Bruyne?
I think he will start because I think if you were to, I think these are the sorts of games where Guardiola has to pick the team that is either most in form or the ones that he sees as his best players for this season. And Gundogan is both most in form and one of the best players of the season. So I think he plays, and I think he has to start kind of in the 8 role alongside De Bruyne, just because. It's those two together have been, when they've played together this season, they've been quite destructive for City. De Bruyne took a little bit of time to get back into his rhythm after his injury, but they've both had the big contributing factors into the winning run, and there's no doubt about it. As soon as, I mean. It's difficult to say because City were good with De Bruyne and without De Bruyne, but as soon as he's come back in and he's playing well alongside Gundogan, the options City have had to create those chances that they need, that they've had the patience to or that they've needed patience to create. De Bruyne has been a big part of it, and I think Gundogan is part of that reason as well, because he also has had the ability to know when to play it in behind, when to hold it, play it square to De Bruyne or knock it wide to the wing, and it's just that reading of the game that they both have gives each other the option. And I think for a game like this one where City are going to need to be alert and not too open at the back to allow Haaland time to get in behind and to cause them damage, because they know if they give up a chance, any half chance to Haaland, then they'll concede an away goal. They really need to be on the game, and I think those two offer that element of control that Guardiola wants, with the ability to open the game up when they spot the opportunity to.
Yeah, that's obviously very interesting. When you say it's going to be more for 8-8, what kind of setup are we looking at? I think against Leicester, the 2-0 win, was it a 4-2-3-1? Is it going to be something like that again, or is it going to be more of a 4-3-3?
Listen, I've given up trying to explain what Guardiola does, because against Leicester, it was on paper it was a 4-4-2, but when you watched it, it was nothing like a 4-4-2. They had Mendy effectively playing left wing. Mahrez was sticking wide on the right and allowing De Bruyne to kind of ghost around that 8 role. I don't know, and there are better people. There are better tacticians than I have tried to explain what Guardiola does and have got it completely wrong. What will happen, and I guarantee what will happen, is we will see the starting lineup. What is it, about an hour before kickoff, and everybody that is a City fan on Twitter will go into meltdown about what he's trying to do and how it's going to look. And then when you watch it on the pitch, it'll probably make a little bit of sense, and it'll take 10 minutes to bed in to kind of work out what he's doing, and then it'll make sense. My gut instinct is that we'll see Zinchenko come back in at left back, and then Cancelo come back in at right back, and Cancelo will be the sort of right back that plays also as a number 8. And I don't really understand how he does it and why it works, but he does, and it kind of all moves around.
Yeah, Dortmund fans have a bit of a grip on that, because Rafael Guerreiro as a left back does similar things. So at least in that perspective, Dortmund fans sort of can understand that position.
Yeah, so I'm expecting that from Cancelo on the right-hand side. Zinchenko will then kind of tuck inside, become a back three with probably Stones and Diaz. Rodri will be the holding player unless for some reason he goes with Fernandinho again after Leicester. And then after that, it's kind of take your pick from the attacking players because they will just kind of fluidly move around and stretch the game as best they can. My hunch is that City will play without a striker and he'll play the false nine system he's been playing for most of this season when, Aguero's barely played this year. Jesus, if he does play, will probably be a sort of wide player coming inside to add extra bodies into the mix when they need it. So my gut is that he'll go with the false nine. As for a kind of a tactical setup, I couldn't tell you. You could nominally call it a 4-2-3-1, but I don't know. I don't know how it'll look.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can interpret these systems in quite different ways. And I mean, the annoying part about trying to figure out what Pep Guardiola is doing, that once you figured it out after like 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the game, by that time he's already moved on to the next system or setup or tactical ingenuity, which makes it very hard to predict. And I think this is sort of the main worry for Borussia Dortmund, that they will have trouble to adapt to what Manchester City are doing, because this is the sort of game where Dortmund will just be reacting. I don't think they will be very proactive. At least in this season, they have hardly done so anyway. Back in the day when Dortmund really had their glory days, they were a very proactive side, and it was almost irrelevant what the opponents were doing. I think Manchester City found that out themselves. I think wasn't there a group stage once where you were beaten by the glorious Julian Schieber? I think that was a 1-0 loss. The second game of that group was a non-event from memory, because I think City had, I think they'd lost 2, drawn 3 at that point in the group, and so they were dead and buried. They couldn't get out of the group, and so I think because I remember Scott Sinclair played, and when Scott Sinclair played for City, he knew it was a dead rubber because Mancini never played him. But the first game at the Etihad, I'd never seen anything like it. It was incredible. The pressure that City were under from minute 1 to minute 90 was insane. And the fact that they got away with a 1-1 draw, because I think it was a bit of a dodgy penalty as well, right at the end. Yeah, certainly at the 90th giving away a handball, which I don't even know if it was. Yeah.
But I seem to remember everyone in the stadium appealed for it and the referee gave it. And then afterwards we watched it on telly and was like, oh, that's a bit, maybe it wasn't a penalty, but we'll take it.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for Joe Hart, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Dortmund were very wasteful in that time, and actually there was one of the few times where Jürgen Klopp actually made a switch from his 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3 system. I remember that Jakub Blaszczykowski played in more of a midfield role than on the wing where he usually used to play. So good times. Not how the current events are unfolding for the Black and Yellows, but nevertheless, it's always great to be in a quarterfinal. Dortmund haven't achieved that in quite some time either. So it's obviously good for them to be in this sort of game and measure themselves against. I think you can comfortably say that Man City are the best team in the world, and I think the Champions League really is theirs to lose this season. Which they have done before.
Let me tell you, they can lose it in quite some spectacular style as well. So
I mean, I don't know if Bayern Munich or PSG will come out of on top in that game, because Bayern will obviously be without Lewandowski, but then PSG will be without Verratti, if I'm not mistaken. But I personally am looking forward to a two-legged tie between Bayern and Man City, because I think those really right now are the two best teams in Europe. And I think Grant Wall was it on Twitter who complained a little bit about that, sort of the best two teams should face each other in the final. But my personal preference is the best two teams going up against each other in the semifinal, just because you get two legs and more intrigue and drama.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, this is I think one of the problems that there's a long history of City fans not buying into the Champions League as well, and there's so many reasons behind that I could spend all day talking about. The two big reasons I think are, one, City have never been very good in it, so that's never really endeared the fans to it. But second off, I think a lot of City fans see through it for what it is in the early stages, and the groups are ultimately very, very boring. There's no getting around it. And the best ties in the Champions League, when you talk about the iconic Champions League ties of the last few years, every single one of them is a knockout tie. And if you want people to buy into the competition as and to make it this wonderful thing, it should be a knockout competition from the very first round where anybody can draw anybody, apart from maybe putting in bars to stop teams from the same country drawing each other. And that provides so much more entertaining football than these group stages. But what it does is it knocks all the sponsorship opportunities, and it cuts down the number of big games that UEFA have to market as this wonderful competition. So it's completely at odds to what you want the competition to be. And yet you look at it and you watch those games and you go, God, it's another Wednesday night where City have to play Shakhtar for the 350th time in the last 5 years. And like, the draw for the groups is always the same. As soon as you get into pot one, the draw for the groups is always the same, because unless you get drawn really early, there's so many restrictions about who can be in what group. Suddenly, you're playing Shakhtar and Mönchengladbach again, because that's the only thing that can happen. Or Dinamo Zagreb come out again for whatever reason, and then you get to the knockout phase, and anybody can play anybody, and suddenly you get these wonderful ties, and that's how. You look at, if City are going to win the Champions League this season, they're going to have to do it the hard way, because they've got to get past Dortmund, who, as much as you've been self-depreciating, that Dortmund is still a very good side that could do City a lot of damage in these two legs. So they've got to do that. They then face, if they pull that off, they face Bayern Munich or PSG. Both sides have a very good chance of beating City as well. And they get to the final, and I mean, you're looking at Chelsea there as a team that they could have to face, who, this season under Tuchel have completely changed how they're playing. So there's the potential for City here to have 5 fantastic games of football. And that's what the Champions League should be about. And to get that, we've had to play, 6-7 games of absolute dross before it.
Man, a Champions League final between Tuchel and Pep Guardiola would be the ultimate overthink derby I can think of. Because in Germany we have a word called vertucheln, which basically means that you overthink it so much that you make really shit lineup decisions, just like Pep Guardiola did against Liverpool. Basically, he coined that word just by trying too hard to accommodate little features of your opponent that actually ultimately don't make that big of a difference, but you sort of completely.
Yeah, he'll do it. I guarantee you, he'll do it again. If he doesn't do it against Dortmund, I promise you, he'll do it on the game in between Dortmund. We play Leeds at the Etihad, and his respect for Bielsa is through the roof. So he'll look at that game and go, "Well, Bielsa's going to do this, so I need to do this." But he'll know I'll do this, so Bielsa will do this instead. And it just, honestly, he'll play something ridiculous in that middle game just because of what the Champions League's doing to his head.
But at least that keeps you on your toes as the host of the Bluemoon podcast. Thank you again, David, for coming on. Quick prediction.
I hate these because I always go wrong. I'm going to say City will edge it 2-1, and that away goal is going to really make me nervous.
Right. Yeah. May the jinx be strong with you. And hopefully we'll hear more from you as this type progresses. But obviously, if it's like a 5-0 shellacking and it's 90 minutes of garbage time, I don't see much sense of discussing this game any further. So if Dortmund come to City and absolutely batter us, then I won't. I'll be a no-show for the other way around as well. So don't worry about that. So thanks for the one and done. Please plug your show or shows or whatever you want to plug. Be my guest, and after that, it's going to be me and Matthias. Having a headache of who to start against this Manchester City, the Citizens, the not Royal Blues, but Sky Blues.
Yeah, well, if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at David Mooney because I'm not very imaginative, and the username was available. And the podcast is Bluemoon Podcast, available in all the usual places. I also do the Athletics Why Always Us with Sam Lee as well. So yeah, if you can't get enough City podcasts, then there's usually something on my Twitter feed about it.
I thought you were going to say, if you can't get enough Manchester City podcasts, that's your fault, not mine.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, as always, there was a pleasure talking to you. Probably more of a pleasure than actually watching the game. As you know, Impending Doom is the episode title. I've already written that down, so that's where my head is at right now. Anyway, David Mooney, thank you again, and now it's over to Matthias and myself. And now, as promised, I am joined by Matthias Suuck to discuss the Champions League tie against Manchester City from Borussia Dortmund's perspective. Hello, Matthias. How are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. I am doing quite well. The sun is shining and everyone's happy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well too. The sun is shining here as well, and I am really hoping that after recording this podcast, I still have a little time to go out on the football pitch myself and kick the ball around a little, because yeah, it's gorgeous outside, and I don't really want to waste too much of Easter Monday sitting in the basement. But Matthias, obviously, it's going to be a very difficult tie. I assume you have seen the match against Eintracht Frankfurt, which we shall discuss in the next episode in more depth. Looking at this game and looking to the next Champions League game, how would you, as Borussia Dortmund, approach this Champions League match, and how much priority would you put on it, since maybe you still want to rescue your Bundesliga season in one way or another, maybe if it's just finishing ahead of frickin' Bayer Leverkusen?
I mean, that's a good question. And yes, obviously, I watched the Frankfurt match, after which I watched baseball, which wasn't much better because the Red Sox lost. But at least it's baseball. And baseball, even when you lose in baseball, it's relaxing. So, no complaints there. The problem is I've also watched Manchester City this season. So, but I did also watch them lose against Manchester United. And the thing is, could Borussia Dortmund get a quote-unquote result out of this, i.e. a manageable loss, a draw, or a win? Yes, obviously they could. Will they? Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think Bruno Fernandes is playing for Borussia Dortmund yet. So, what they need is that one difference maker, and that one difference maker cannot be Erling Haaland, because as we have seen in the last two Bundesliga matches, even though obviously against Köln he scored both goals, but if the service to him gets dried up and nullified, then it doesn't matter how good your striker is. If he doesn't get a ball, he's not going to score. I know, shocking and breaking news there. The difference maker is kind of the issue that Dortmund have, and they don't really have that. I don't believe Jadon Sancho is going to be able to suit up for this. I don't think Marcel Schmelzer is going to be available. So, the question is, who's the difference maker?
Yeah, Julian Schieber also not playing anymore for Borussia Dortmund.
No, I think, again, moving Frankfurt discussion to Thursday's recording, please, oh please, for all that is joyous and holy in the world, do not play Guerreiro in the center of the pitch if your left back option is Nico Schulz. Please put Guerreiro there and Dahoud in the middle. And maybe that was part, obviously Terzic had some ideas, didn't quite work out. Sometimes that happens. Pep Guardiola has been known to overthink pretty much this stage of the Champions League with every team that's not named Barcelona. So there is that hope that Pep overthinks things. I don't think he's going to this time, because Manchester City are just better. I mean, pound for pound, player for player, They are a significantly better side.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
I have this lingering fear that even if he overthinks things, that he still comes out on top because it just won't matter.
Well, I mean, if you have Gundogan and De Bruyne, you've already, I mean, those are two absolute world-class players. I heard a discussion not too long ago, is Thomas Müller the best German player? No, it's Ilkay Gundogan. I mean, it's not even close, in my opinion. It's Gundogan, Kroos, Müller. I mean, kind of in that order right now, if you were going to do that kind of a ranking. They have difference makers everywhere. What Dortmund can do is, what they can't do, in my opinion, is basically hope for a counterattack and just sit deep in a low block and defend, because Manchester City will tear you apart. At best, they're going to get a penalty because they'll just force the mistake out of you. And needless to say, Dortmund has been very gracious in giving away penalties to opponents this season. So you can't do what you did against Bayern, where even though you had a great start, you then pulled back so much, so often, and then Bayern, obviously, referees to the side, just wore you down towards the end. Obviously, that tactic worked against Sevilla, just barely. I don't think it'll just barely work against Manchester City. Dortmund have to play way more on the front foot, have to be absolutely focused the entire time. Now, as to your other question, should Dortmund prioritize it? I mean, you don't want to get embarrassed. I mean, at worst, you really want to look like Gladbach did in the previous round, in the sense of, Gladbach didn't have a chance, but they didn't get embarrassed. They gave a decent account of themselves. That's really what Dortmund should do. Their goal should be to finish 5th or 7th. I don't think anybody really wants to finish in the Europa Conference League playoff spots. Even though, now to be honest, that may not be have a slightly more competitive, quote-unquote, friendly schedule with a new manager. And I'm really curious about that competition, to be honest. But Europa League, let's finish 5th. And so the priority should be on the league and the cup, because obviously there is still an absolute possibility to, oddly enough, come out of this season with a trophy in the cabinet. But I don't really see Dortmund. I don't see Dortmund advancing past Manchester City. I don't see them not losing both legs. I just think Manchester City, the only team I have confidence in that could beat Manchester City, is the team they're most likely going to face in the next round, and that's Bayern or PSG. I mean, those, to me, this side, Dortmund got the worst side of the bracket. Let's be honest. I mean, PSG, Bayern, Manchester City, take your pick who's going to kick you out. And so my hope is that Dortmund beats them up a little bit, gives a good account of for themselves. I think Manchester City is going to win this one relatively comfortably, unfortunately.
I mean, the good news is that Dortmund at least made the quarterfinal, which is something they didn't achieve too many times in recent past. So we can celebrate that, obviously. I remember myself saying naively maybe that going up against the best team in the world, which I think Manchester City are right now, is a nice benchmark to really see how far away you are from that. But at the same time, FC Köln and Eintracht Frankfurt are benchmarks right now as well that Dortmund cannot really overcome. So, in that sense, I have a little bit of egg on my face, but I think my point still stands, because Dortmund usually tend to play a little bit better in the Champions League than in the Bundesliga. Maybe that's due to the character of this team. Maybe they're a bit too arrogant or whatever to turn it and crank it up to 100% in the Bundesliga, but show their best in the Champions League. I mean, the tie against Sevilla was definitely a rather strong performance from Dortmund, even if cynics like Lars Pollmann would say that they had one strong half. But nevertheless, I thought that overcoming the Sevilla team is not an easy feat, and so that's something Dortmund still can take some pride in, and basically the positive. But Manchester City is going to be a whole nother caliber. So who are you starting in this game, Matthias, considering the performances of the Frankfurt game and those impressions? Who do you trust play at the Etihad on Tuesday night?
Well, I mean, I would definitely continue with the Hummels Akanji pairing as central defenders. I think overall Akanji gave a relatively good account of himself, given that he was out injured for so long. It's not that big of a deal. Nico Schulz, I'll be honest, again, Frankfurt Thursday, that own goal, it's unlucky. It really could have happened to anybody, but of course it had to happen to him. The danger is Dortmund's right backside. I think during the Frankfurt match, the commentary team said that Dortmund conceded 14 goals coming across Dortmund's right side. That's obviously something Pep Guardiola is going to take a close look at. Whether you start Matteo Morey yet at that point, I think right now it's kind of looking at matchups, and matchups wise, I just, Dortmund aren't going to stack up well. I assume Manchester City is probably going to overload that side a little bit. So that's why having an Akanji as a central defender on that right-hand side, in my opinion, is what you need, given his pace and overall good positioning. So I hope to see him there. I hope to see Guerrero as a left back, not Nico Schulz, because I just don't think Nico Schulz is a very good player. And Guerrero will offer certain bright spark moments and playmaking moments from that position that Pep Guardiola will have to account for. And then you start Mahmoud Dahoud. I mean, no doubt, Dahoud paired with Delaney and Bellingham or Can, I would go with the 3-man central midfield. I would not play 4-2-3-1. I would match up, almost shadow Manchester City, and I would put that kind of a steel and good pressing resistance in the center of the pitch. And then, sure, start Marco Reus. And, I mean, you're going to have to start Torgan Hazard, because I just don't think Gio Reyna would do well in this situation. I mean, you could even consider putting Reina in there, Renier. He added some energy against Frankfurt. May as well throw him out there, and obviously Haaland up top. I mean, that's how I would approach it. I think I wouldn't put Emre Can in the back line right now unless you really had to. He's a good player, but I would prefer to see him in the center of the pitch, because I think that's where he could help neutralize some of the strengths from Manchester City, because that's really where a lot of their strength comes from that core. So the more people you have in there that'll make life very difficult for players in the center of the pitch for Manchester City, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, sorry, I just yawned. I was going to say something.
Dude, seriously? Like, is that like a comment on my commentary?
No, not at all.
Right,
it's just I'm already like, so we have to move over to predictions soon. Am I going to predict Dortmund losing 5-0 or 5-1? So basically, this is where my mind is at right now. But let's speak real quick about the let's call it Hazard position, because Torgan Hazard against Frankfurt looked not so great, but there is not that much merit for Gio Reyna, on the merit of himself basically playing in this position, which is why I guess you are throwing a curveball to Renier right now. It's a bit tricky because, of course, Reyna, I guess, has sort of connections to Manchester City-ish, to that conglomerate, I guess. But will that warrant a better performance? I have no idea, to be honest. What do you do on this position? Because Hazard really, on the one hand, didn't really impress to merit a start. On the other hand, I don't know if the alternatives give you a better option right now. So again, how would you solve that puzzle? And maybe would it help Hazard to maybe start off the bench at some point?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to blame Hazard because, again, it's been a very start-stop season for him due to injuries, and that'll always hurt you, especially in this really weird season we're in anyway with COVID and all that stuff. But that's why I decided, maybe go in with Renier, go in with somebody who has a point to prove not to Manchester City, but to Real, and kind of do more and be more present. Hazard, I think you would be doing him a disservice to start him against there. I have no confidence in Gio Reyna. None. I think his season is spent, and he's a sub at this point, and not more, because he's kind of fallen off and regressed back to his age. And that's not his fault. That's just the way it is. And I don't think this is the right kind of game to start him. Hazard probably has the better mentality in games like this than Gio Reyna. I haven't seen enough to really make that judgment, but I do feel like he can be more of an advanced playmaking threat than anybody else in that position right now. So that's how I would like to see it. Odds are it's going to be Thorgan Hazard.
All right, fair enough. It's interesting how we have yet to mention Julian Brandt at all, who, at least on paper, should be in the discussion.
Honestly, I just completely forgot about it. Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not? Throw Julian Brandt out there. But the fact that I've completely forgotten about him probably says a lot.
Yeah, it does so, and I think we'll talk about that subject a little bit more on Thursday, and I guess it's time to leave it here now. Matthias, thanks for coming on such a short notice. It was a pleasure talking to you, even if it's about a subject I don't really want to talk about, but here we are. So, it's prediction time, and I think I have made up my mind, and I'm even more gracious than I previously thought I was going to be, and I will say that Dortmund will lose this by 5-2, the first leg, and then I don't know how the second leg will go. But yeah, that's going to be 90 minutes of garbage time anyway. So, Matthias, what's your prediction?
Well, I don't think it's going to be quite that much of a shellacking. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to be optimistic and say Dortmund lose 3-1. That's great optimism right there. So 3-1, Holland scores a goal.
I mean, if you look
Big
at
shocker.
the games that Man City had against Gladbach, they didn't necessarily steamroll them. But I really expect Dortmund to attempt a low block defense for the most part of this game and just get killed. I wish we had a team where we could say, yeah, they don't care who Manchester City are. They are going to be out there and very courageously try to press them to shreds and then see what comes out at the other end. But that's not the Borussia Dortmund team anymore that we once had. This is a whole nother side which is cautious, which reverts back around their own box and then is capable of very comical mistakes, sadly. So this is why I have such a negative outlook for this one. So it is what it is. We shall discuss the Manchester City game and the Frankfurt game on Thursday, and then preview the next fun league match that's upon us. In the meantime, Matthias, where can people send you hate mail for your top 3 German player ranking?
Well, you can watch me break down and cry on Twitter at Matthias Suuck.
Yes, if you want to find me in the fetal position, you can do that at Stefan Butzko on Twitter as well. Thanks again for coming on to David Mooney and providing his expertise. You can follow all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and everywhere else where you find your podcast, as they usually say. And that should be it for now. As always, thank you for listening. Until in a couple of days, goodbye.